first of all, I want to say thank you both for coming out here because, like I said before, I'm really curious to see how this will play itself out, because this is actually this is, if there's one thing I would love to see happen, is where conversations are as honest as possible. And I'm hoping that this would be something that people can take away from and hopefully learn about the overall process of what it takes to make movies, and talk with somebody else who may have a perception about what they liked and didn't like. Here's what I'll say I did like about the movie. I actually do like the character of Boone, played by Neil McDonough. That character, and I can see why Neil had told you guys he wanted to play that, because I think initially, if I remember correctly, he was going to be playing, or he was offered for the role of Hutch. Is that right?
Jed. He was offered
Right.
for Jed.
Right. Oh, Jed. That's right. That's right. Okay.
Right. So very, 3 days of shooting, whatever.
Right. So, and then eventually when he saw the script, he was leaning more towards the character of Boone. And then you guys had changed some things along the way to make it fit for his, way of acting, which I think actually worked. What I also liked too, honestly, was Hutch. Hutch, played by Billy Blair. That guy, every time I see Billy in your, because I just saw him with in Whitetail again last night. I love his approach when it comes to, because some things are very subtle and there are some things that are just on the nose that I think worked really well with him, because I think he does that real brilliant in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
That character certainly was one of the high points for me in the film. The other thing I want to point out too is with the narrative, as far as like what the whole story was, which I actually did like. So considering that you guys were shooting, literally being the first production during COVID, I'm not sure if you guys had a certain, like I planned as far as how you were going to shoot certain sequences that then having going through the COVID protocols that may have changed along the way, that where you guys had some idea about how you want to take a direction to the story that maybe didn't pan out as well as you would wanted to, because of those restrictions that are in place, considering you guys were pretty much the first film to test that out. So was anything like that that kind of tainted that whole process for you along the way?
Man, I would say it was more so on Boone, the next one that we did, than on Redstone, honestly, because we were kind of making up the rules as we were going. Nobody really knew. I'm trying to think of a specific instance though, because we were playing it safe. We were doing the mask. It was hot as hell. I mean, it was June, Texas. So outside we weren't like completely covered up. Inside we were. Derek, can you think of like any moments, like interior wise?
There was only one moment that we changed. It was when Neil goes into the apartment. He was supposed to, originally it was written he suffocates Paul.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
Bare hand. He puts it over his mouth. He shot him already. So he was going to kneel down and he was going to put his hand over his face and slowly suffocate him. And we were trying to limit as much contact with people, so physically putting his hand on his mouth and having to shoot all that coverage we'd have to do. We just said, why don't you just shoot him?
That's right. That's
why
why
he does that where he pops
that,
him in the, and then I think Neil added his own flair of not looking at him when he did it. So he just pops him.
So, but let me ask you guys this real quickly. When you guys were shooting, was there any doubts along the way with those new restricted guidelines? And as you mentioned before, Jason, some things were kind of made up along the way, just because there was no as far as like protocols that were already set as far as how you guys were to go about this year. Was that a little more stressful as production continued on there? Because I know you mentioned that Boone is that was probably a little bit more problematic as opposed to Redstone. But I'm just curious about if anything had, from what you guys had shot with Whitetail and going into into Redstone, was there any concerns about how the film may turn out because of those restrictions that were in place?
Yeah, I honestly, just about maybe midway through shooting, there's a lot of like social media posts started popping up and stuff, and then people started commenting on those, and that scared me. I mean, I thought, okay, man, some SAG rep's going to show up and think we're just out here not doing what we said we were going to do. That was a big fear for me. So, and people take things out of context. People, I don't know if they were just upset because they weren't hired to work on a film or whatever, but we had a lot of kind of ugly comments that would show up every now and again on some.
There's a lot of haters.
A lot of haters.
There's a lot of haters wherever you go, but especially around here. So nothing we can do about that.
I'm actually glad you pointed out, because I talked to I'm not sure if you guys know who. I'm sure you guys met Todd Jenks before, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So I talked to Todd before, and one thing that he pointed out, at least with Tex, is that he he had told like how competitive that the independent community is out there, but at the same time how silly it can be in terms of like how certain people who may work in a certain production will shit on another production rather than just try to, cooperate with one another and communicate with one another. Where he told me an experience where because I asked him what was the worst thing he had gone through after he had made Cherokee Creek, which was, for at least in the horror community, it was a very well received film, but then they also got shit on as well too, for a number of different reasons. But um, he was saying that he got hired to work on a production, and when he got on set, they just pretty much shit on him the entire time, and then they fired him without having to pay him. So when he told me what the level of animosity that's out there, at least within the Texas independent community, I had no idea like how bad it really was out there. And even I even talked to Brent Bettman as well too. He kind of gave me some insight as well about how it can be pretty rough out there. But then you get guys who talk about their experience shooting in Texas, where it can be a lot easier in other areas as far as getting access to certain locations and maybe getting permits to certain places where in California might not be as easy and a little bit more cheaper for a number of different reasons. But it's like that part was actually new to me, and Todd was really the one that kind of just broke that perception of how I thought Texas was a little bit more easier in terms of filmmaking. But in reality, it's actually a lot harder when you have a lot of people who are out to get one another, and it's pretty cutthroat. So is that pretty on point from what he'd explained about what it's like out there making films in Texas?
I think you, like Derek says, a lot of haters. You
Right.
get a lot of people just talking shit, right? Just
Right.
because they're not part of it. I mean, that's not us. We've risen above that, and I think we proved that with what we've been able to do and what we're doing going forward. And we're friendly to all those guys, and so I mean, we're a small kind of. I mean, we're just a small pond, and
We're a puddle.
yeah, we are a puddle. So everybody should be like trying to raise each other up,
Right.
instead of like shitting on each other's projects. Because making shitty movies is hard. It's just making movies is hard,
Yeah.
And advancing every time too. Every the first 3 films we've done, we've gone up in budget and
Yeah.
contacts and talent, and that's hard enough as it is to do that.
Yeah. Well, so when you guys, you Jason, you're commenting before about how some comments were made on on social media about what you guys were doing halfway through the production. Were the comments more about people who were giving some false rumors about what was going on set that you thought would affect you guys with the union? Is that what it was that you guys were experiencing?
Yeah. Pictures of people without mask. Of course, like I said, we're in June, summer, we're outside. It's like, okay, like those kind of.
We had to tell everybody, like, you don't congregate, don't get close. When we're outside and we're at a scrap metal yard, you can take your masks off if you're 6 feet apart, kind of thing. And you don't always do that, especially that early in this thing. So it was more just kind of nasty little comments from people being like, you shouldn't be doing that, and stuff like that. You shouldn't be making a film right now, and whatever. We made it, no one got sick, and we were very careful. So
yeah.
How long was the shoot for the movie though?
18 days.
The film was 18 days.
That was 18. Oh wow, okay. So 18 days and you said no one got sick, so there was no halt in the production as far as positive tests were concerned. Nothing of that sort at all.
Nothing of that sort on that one or on Boone. So
interesting. So when you guys were shooting the film, then as I mentioned before, there were things that I did appreciate what you guys were doing, but the one thing that I actually took away the most from the film was that I could see that for me, it definitely, you guys definitely step it up a notch as far as like broadening the story, making Texas a little bit more part of the background, more locations as opposed to Whitetail, which was all pretty much one location for the most part. So with this movie though, as far as the logistics are concerned in locations, was that also, I mean, for you, Derek, in that respect, was that a little bit difficult to try to direct a film as opposed to where you guys were coming off of Whitetail, where it was all one place, and then here moving on to different set of locations? Was that a little more difficult for you as well to try to handle the responsibilities in that respect?
Yeah, I mean, I think if going from what Whitetail was when we're all there, very very close knit, and
right,
we're going over here, but we have a home base, which is that house. It makes it a little bit more difficult, but it also makes it a lot more fun. So, and it makes it, we were in a way, what was funny was because we just used Corsicana, the city of Corsicana.
Okay.
Was the same thing as that the land in Joshua, Texas. It was we had just this little city, and it wasn't very big, So company moves were at the most 15, 20, maybe 20 minutes to get out to the Jed Haywood property.
Okay.
For the most part, we were all it was kind of the same thing, just with and we have a really good we had a really great AD, Jeff Weiss. We had a great production manager and producer, Austin Williams. Those guys know how to schedule and know how to do all of the logistics. Jason as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't really make it all that difficult. I think the thing in the back of my head was always, when are we going to run into, because with that movie, when are we going to run into somebody getting sick? Yeah, that was what you think about from day one and on. You're just like, oh God, is somebody going to get sick? Is it going to stop? Every day, you're hoping, and you shouldn't be doing that. Obviously you'd like to be worried about, you'd like your head to be at where most people's heads are when they're making movies, performances, names, and all that. But you can't, you get people together, and if we didn't have the budget, like the bigger films to stop and like, okay, we're gonna wait a few days, everybody's gonna isolate. We would have been done. So
did having the COVID test during the production, did that affect the overall production for the film in itself, where you probably had the money going to one aspect of the production that maybe had been affected by that too, because they had to go towards the testing? Was there anything like that affected that in any way?
Not on Redstone.
Okay.
That's another conversation for Boone, I guess.
Okay.
Bigger, much bigger staff, much more expenses being paid for COVID. So, but no, I don't think there was anything where. I mean, I remember prepping these like COVID kits before the movie, like for everybody. Everybody got kind of like this backpack with all their sanitizer, all their mask, everything in their bags, just to have everything ahead of time, to just like, hey guys, let's try to use this. This is how we're gonna do this, and that wasn't that much. And then I don't remember like a huge part of the budget. Like, man, Derek, we can't use these squibs today because we had to. So,
there wasn't any of that from what I remember either. There really wasn't.
Well, so when you guys are, when you guys were shooting the film, so I'm curious for you both actually, before you guys had started with the production, what was coming off of Whitetail? What was the experience like with the reception of Whitetail, and then moving into Redstone? Like, was your level of confidence for this upcoming project, or for that project, but to say, was it getting a little better? Were you guys getting more confident with, okay, now we've done this, we can definitely pull this off? Or were you guys still a little concerned about, I don't know, now it's going to be a bigger scale, how are we going to pull it off? Was anything like that would have crossed your mind in preparing for that?
For me, to be honest with you, it was a big snowball. I mean, it's a blur right now. I don't even remember having time to panic, because we were in post on Whitetail. We showed it to the executive producer. We had a couple other investors, and they all loved it. And they said, let's do something with more money. And that was January of 2020, whenever we showed them the cut. So by February, we're gearing up for Redstone, and we're getting our offices in Fort Worth, Texas.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, all the reports started coming in about this thing called the coronavirus. And we were like, what the hell is this? And next thing we know, we're in lockdown. And so during lockdown, we did all of our stuff in our offices, just like we're doing now. That's how we did it. I did all pre-pro for the most part like that. Because I don't really remember it. It was more of like, okay, we got to get it done. We were so, I know this, I was so amped because we were trying to get the film. Jason was adamant that we were going to shoot as soon as we get out of lockdown. And three of us, myself included, was trying to push it to July. And Jason was saying, no, we got to shoot it now. We got to shoot it now because they may shut down again. This is our window, to do it. So it was kind of like a ticking time bomb in a way. We just had this ultimate, like this goal of doing that. And, some people have said Whitetail, I've heard Whitetail's my third feature, and I've done a slew of short films, commercials, music videos. Jason has worked on some pretty gnarly productions and has done post-production for 20 something years. And you know, we were, our confidence wasn't really anything we were worried about. Again, I go back to it again. It's kind of kicking a dead horse, but I'm just concerned about the COVID thing at that point.
Yeah, that was the real question, Rob, was like, I mean, we were just moving, you know, we were kind of adapting on the fly. We were going to shoot in April, and
Right.
we were going to shoot in Fort Worth. We had a PO, a production office in Fort Worth, and then this COVID thing shut down. And that's actually why we moved to Corsicana, because the cases were it was like 8 people in the whole county where Corsicana is, you know, in the city there. And
They were tested positive.
That we knew were positive. Okay. And so one of our producers, Robert Johnson, who's also the chief of police of Corsicana, we had a lot of good inside information about what was going on in the city and cases and all that. And so that really helped us. That I would say that actually made me feel a little bit better, but still not knowing what we're dealing with SAG, are we going to get greenlit? Because listen, we were greenlit on a Friday and we were shooting Monday. Like nobody knew we were not already didn't have a production number already. And I just kept saying like, look, we're just going to roll the dice. Like everybody's showing up Sunday, get in their hotel room and start working Monday. We're shooting Monday, and we didn't have a production number until Friday about 4:00 in the afternoon.
So was the 18-day shooting schedule, is that already set as far as what the turnaround time was supposed to be for the production, or was that kind of just you guys figured it out as you got closer to the production?
No, that was set.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
I think Derek wanted more. He always wants more.
Which director wouldn't?
That's what you get, man.
But do you guys like working in that short schedule with, you know, that 2-week turnaround time? Because I know Whitetail was what, I think 16 days, if I remember correctly. 12 days. Okay, 12 days, right. All right. And then so you had that shot in under 2 weeks. This one just over 2 weeks. So you have a slight bump in your days with your schedule there. But do you guys like that, or? I know it's probably an unfair question to ask, but I mean, I'm sure you guys would prefer more time, as Derek has kind of indicated there. Sean and Jason has indicated about Derek. So I mean,
yeah. No, Derek would like more time. I'd like more time, but it's all about what can we get done, budgets, and man, it's so hard because you got to coordinate everything, right? And the people, and I feel like if you can, the shorter the time, the less time you have for shit to go wrong. So that's kind of my thought process behind it. It's like
Jason's thought is get on set and off set as fast as possible so we could get it in post and we could do our stuff and not be, you know, which is right. I mean, that's the correct way of thinking. So. Yeah, I mean, it would have been nice, but then you get into those, like on Redstone, we had I think one 11-page day.
Okay.
And you know, and with what we shot that day, it was that's pretty ambitious, you know. And I think anybody would tell you, you know, anybody that says, oh yeah, we can do that like that, you know, I'm not gonna say they're lying, but I don't think they're telling the truth. 11 pages is a lot of pages, you know. I prefer to stick to, like, you know, 5 pages a day is that's a nice enough page day, you know?
So when you guys were preparing for the shoot, then were you guys feeling, I mean, I've asked a question before. I meant to say what I was trying to ask actually was, when you guys were preparing for the shoot, were you guys, did you guys have a perception about how things are going to change moving forward? Because being that you guys were the first production to go into to shooting a movie in COVID, was there any like holy shit, this is not going to be what it was before 3 months ago? Now I can see that it's going to affect everything that we can do after this production here. Like, was there any thoughts like that that crossed your mind?
Small. I mean, I don't know if it's small, but it's just something that I thought of was the catering and the craft services on movie sets. You know, a lot. I mean, I don't know how all of them are, obviously, but most of them are buffet style. You know, you get up, you go get your plate.
Right.
That was out the window. So they had to figure out how to personally. We had to go basic. In a way, it was like doing the short films that I did when I was a teenager. You know, and I would go I'd have somebody rush to a fast food restaurant and buy individual meals for the 5 people that are working on this little movie. It was like that, but on a much bigger scale.
It was not fast food, by the way.
It wasn't fast food, but it was actually. Really,
but it was like that, yeah. That it process, was like right?
Restaurant.
This is where you're eating from today, and then somebody would go get it, bring the containers back, and pop up and eat. You know,
that's so different. You know, for what we've done.
Different from Whitetail. I mean, Whitetail, we had a full caterer come in and take care of us. You know, and that was total buffet style and, you know, chef style. So.
Interesting.
But I
Also, too, just
like
having the. Oh, go ahead. What were you saying, Jason?
I like that process though, and I think going
Really?
forward, I keep implementing that process. Yeah, I think it's more efficient. I think it's less waste because there's a lot of waste when you go this buffet style.
Mhm.
And I just think it's way more efficient. People can grab their food and go do what they want, go sit in their car and eat or whatever. Go,
Right.
I think rest a little bit more instead of just sitting around and keep talking about what's wrong with the film or things like that, you know. So
Right.
The
Well,
other thing too
I'm sorry.
was
Go on.
the. Oh, I was just going to say the other thing too that I think it changed, at least for that movie. It may be getting back to normal, but it was the kind of the team and just building that bond is a little bit different whenever you can't. A lot of people, a lot of crew guys, they stay for some reason. I don't know why they're crazy, but they'll stay after afterwards, and they'll go hang out somewhere and all that stuff. And that's during that on that one, it was like, no, everybody went to their rooms or they went to their own they'd stay in their groups, G&E, camera, makeup, nobody, we couldn't, cross over and hang out after the shoot. We couldn't do that, kind of talking.
Right.
yeah, when we had that on Whitetail, which was kind of cool,
Right.
Yeah. So that changed a lot because it was kind of like, okay, we're done. We don't want to get sick, so don't risk it. Everybody go home. Now it's actually on all the unions and on Boone, for instance, we were supposed to bubble. You bubble up and you're certain things. You're not supposed to really cross over. And I don't know if it's still like that on the bigger productions. I just know that's the last one we did was, and
Interesting.
it takes away from it a little bit because I enjoy hanging out with everybody.
So I want to kind of go back with something real quick from what I had heard you both talk about your experience on Whitetail when you guys were talking with Patrick. So you, Jason, you at one point wanted to get into the producing aspect of it here too, and then of course when you got reacquainted with Derek here about Whitetail, then you had shown expression, you had expressed interest to kind of pursue that respective field. So when I'm watching you watching you talk here, you definitely do strike me as a person that likes to that can manage something very well, from what I can gather here. And I'm not sure if Derek, if you want to comment on this here too, but when once you started getting into that role, were you prepared for the amount of responsibilities that would come with that? And then once you had dealt with it, did something change for you along the way where you thought, I really do like this, or it's probably a little harder than I thought, but I can get the hang of it. So I'm curious to hear what your process is like now from when you first started getting into the producing role, and then where you are with it now, with having done a few projects along the way.
Wow, that's a good question. I do thank you, by the way. I think there's a compliment in there, and I deal with a lot of in my work. I build a lot of workflows and pipelines. A lot of big studios I've worked with, like Warner Brothers and Disney, and here's the funny thing is people think of the indie films are hard. Well, the big movies are hard, if not harder too. If you watch movies that made us, like all these great films almost never made it, So, but me personally, I got like this crazy entrepreneurial spirit, and I think that's what a movie producer is. It's a little nutty, but it's the guy that goes out, raises it, gets it together, gets the crew, and builds the product, and then sells the product at the end of it. And I just enjoy doing that. I'm a critical thinker. I don't know. I'm pretty even keeled, like nature wise. Like I can talk to a lot of people, and I tend to get along with a lot of people. So I think that's kind of what it takes to really build a good team, a good solid team. So.
Okay.
He's very calm until he's not.
Yeah, I mean, there is that.
I've actually never seen that side of him. So, but I've heard. Now he's very calm, and I can say that on Whitetail, stepping into it, he was like, at first that we relied heavily on him on the post. Obviously, he brought in some amazing things, and then it was kind of like, well, he's also a gun guy, and he knows all about that. So he brought the guns and did started and made sure everybody was safe, and then it was got into post, and then it got into distribution, and he kind of just took over. I would say this on Redstone, which is something that that I could personally never do. During the pre-production phase, we unfortunately lost for a while our other producer, Austin Williams. He had some health issues, so he couldn't join us. So it was literally just Jason, who had never, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you'd ever figured out a SAG, a Screen Actor. Did none of that. He'd never done any of that, so he had to do all of that with the help of Robert Johnson, and kind of dive into the aspect of producing that I guess when you're doing the really low budget indie films like we come from, you don't necessarily know that stuff, or you don't think you're ever really going to worry about that stuff. And all of a sudden he's thrown into it with a month left to figure it out because we have to get in touch with SAG. And I can tell you one thing, it's, they're a union, they're good union. They have all the stuff, all the great big actors and everything. But man, they're very difficult to navigate sometimes.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah, it's not a matter of like, hey, it's like they always have something else, and they're there to make sure that their actors and their people are safe. So we understand that. But I can give all the credit to Jason on that, because I would have been like, we're not going SAG, just forget about it. I'm not doing it.
Were you guys close to doing that though with Redstone? Were you guys considering, let's just keep the union out of it and just focus on just doing it, what we did with Whitetail? Was that a consideration at one point, or you guys knew that was going to be the case here?
It wasn't. I mean, maybe down the line if we hadn't been able to shoot it, but we all agreed we needed another talent, some actors to, for sales. And things right. And you're not going to get that, without going through SAG.
We wanted to bump it up, that's the whole thing. So I mean, besides the SAG stuff and saying, man, I'm never doing this again. And of course I did it again within 6 months.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm doing it again. I mean, we're working on another one right now that we're getting going. So I don't know, my wife probably hates me for just doing what I'm doing. I just get myself into a bunch of shit, and then you got to get your way out. So
right.
I don't know. I got a good team, and just Google a bunch of stuff and then figure it out. So.
Well, for you, Derek, then, like, what do you think for yourself? Especially, once Whitetail got more notoriety and you were working into Redstone. I mean, I think, for you, you obviously, I know you've gotten better, but do you feel like there was something that, something about you, the way you probably approach directing, writing, whatever the case may be, on how you may look at certain things that may have changed along the way, that has given you a better perspective on how you want to go about with your storytelling? Or because, like I said before, when I'm looking at Whitetail, there was a certain pace of the film that I love when it came to allowing things to just play itself out. Rest, on the other hand, I mean, it's definitely a shorter film, but there's a lot going on with the story, and I'm wondering, like, how, coming off of that and going into this production here, what do you feel like has changed for yourself, where you feel like that, you feel like you've gotten better as far as your directing, your writing is concerned, and then with Jason coming along the way, do you feel like that? Obviously, you made mention that he is very integral to the process here, but was there something along the way that you felt like has improved for yourself in those respects there? I hope that wasn't too long, but I think you understand where I'm coming from here.
No, I totally understand. Yeah, I think I've become a little bit more calm on the set, as far as working with the actors. That was something that before Whitetail, I'd made some films a few years prior, and they were more visuals. I was very much worried about the visuals more than anything else. I think some things that a director does, I was not paying attention to. I was so focused on other things, and I think that's what happened with Whitetail. Was I said, I just want to tell a character. People can say, yeah, we've seen it. Of course you've seen it. What have you not seen? We've seen everything. I mean, for God's sakes, they're releasing movies that we've seen 20 years ago, and they're re-releasing them now and putting another title on it, and it's the same freaking story. Yeah. Still doesn't mean it's bad, because if you're looking for something brand new, chances are you're gonna see it, and you're not gonna like it for 30 years, and then whenever the person who made it's dead and gone, only then. It's like an author, people that like. So
there's a chance, Derek, that Rob may like Redstone after you're dead.
No, and then there's like being, I guess, coming from that and going into Whitetail, I felt really calm, because I knew what I was working on with. It was about the performances. That's all I cared about, And I mean, because Garrett Schwint, who's my cinematographer on that one, Stone and Boon, we plan everything out months and months in advance, storyboards, lenses. We set a look. We do all this stuff with Jason. He helps in the beginning phase stages. So when we get to the set, we try to, I was trying to work on with the actors as much as possible, and also just let them do their things.
Right.
I think I've gotten better at that, not being so controlling.
So trusting the process for people to do their jobs there.
Absolutely. And I will say, that I had never worked with a quote unquote celebrity actor. So you have Neil McDonough, who's very well known, and he's an amazing guy, and he's an amazing actor, and everybody knows him. You have Michael Cudlitz, who's also an amazing actor, very well known, and he's directed, one episode of Walking Dead is probably 5 times the budget of, whatever, Redstone. But he working with those people, they kind of taught me, I will say, to just trust them, let them do what they do. Not like walk away. Obviously, you got to have your opinions and you got to have what you want done. And there were plenty of times that we had long discussions about what we would and would not do, and what I wanted and what I thought the movie, it's all about the film. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So if the film needs it, and we all agree on it, we're gonna do what we can to make sure that happens. But I think I had never done that, so I was really nervous about that. So I'm working with somebody like that.
So when you, I'm not sure if you guys, because I know you both have worked in the industry for a while here, but do you guys, because I know you, Derek, you said you were a big fan of Neil. So meeting him, do you still have that sense of like, oh my God, it's Neil McDonough, or are you more cognizant about, what, don't push it and just look at him as another person? Because I know it might be a silly question to ask, but I'm curious about how because you're working with an actor of that caliber, but being that from what I understand, this is your like the first high caliber actor in your production here. I mean, there's got to be a little bit of perception that changes along the way and how you're talking to an actor where you were talking to other set of actors in your previous work, and how you are talking to Neil. Like, does that kind of change for you along the way, or were you pretty much grounded throughout that whole process?
No, there was definitely. I mean, I was starstruck. Yeah,
Okay.
for sure at first. I mean, no doubt about it. But I think Neil made it easy. I've heard stories where people work with their heroes, and they regret it.
Yeah.
Or they let him walk over them. There are plenty of times when there were things that Neil wanted. For instance, the fedora was his idea. That was not my idea. I wanted to have his wife. I called him my Lee Marvin. I wanted him to be my Lee Marvin in Point Blank. I wanted him to be this suit and tie guy. And he really insisted on having a fedora, and we carried that over to the next one. But for the most part, he's really easy to work with. I think I got easy. I think, I got it very easy when it came to meeting a guy that I highly respect. He's one of my top 10 favorite films of all time, Ravenous.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
Oh, it's amazing. And I love all of his other work as well. He was also really good about not, and again, I don't have any basis for comparison because I've never worked with anybody else other than Cudlitz. And some people in Boone, which are really nice. Really, everybody's really nice. But he could easily say, well, "This isn't how we do it on a Spielberg movie," because he's been on Spielberg movies.
Right.
He's been in Minority Report, Band of Brothers. He could easily say, "Well, I was whoever he was, the mustache dude, and
Captain America, yeah."
Yeah, he could say that. Never once did he mention that. I think the closest that he got to anything like that, and it wasn't in a derogatory way, it was actually just utter shock, was the first day on set. He walked on and there was about 25 people, and he just goes, "This is how it should be, just like a little family. Look at this. There's only like 20 of us." I was like, "Yeah, Neil, this is like the biggest crew I've ever had, man." So, this is great.
I'll say something that will kind of back that up, Rob. There was so I had to move Neil, his housing situation. The first place we had him, wasn't bad, it wasn't terrible, but we ended up moving to a really nice place, and or a better place, I should say. And then there was like the cleaners and people kept coming in there and stuff, and like he'd wake up or come out and there'd like be somebody there in the house, like, oh God. And this was like the second time this has happened. And funny thing is, like with Neil, he comes to me and he tells me, like, the issue, and not in a bad way, but he protects Derek. He's like, "Hey, don't let Derek know. Like, I don't want Derek to get out of his kind of wheelhouse, what he's doing, and be worried about this." So he was really worried about that, for like Derek to get freaked out or kind of upset.
Yeah.
That he thought Neil might have been upset. And and it was no big deal at all, and we took care of it. And I thought that was pretty cool though when Neil did that.
Yeah.
And he's kind of, I guess maybe he was looking more at Derek too, like, oh, he's a young director, maybe he's gonna freak out, and like our star's gonna leave or whatever. But yeah,
there was also another thing too, that after the shoot, I came to have dinner, I guess, with Cudlitz and Neil, Michael Cudlitz and Neil Medina. They're very good friends because they know each other for years. And I went and had just at their place, you know, we just sat on the porch, and Jason did that a number of times as well. And I came over one time, and you know, it's not like I had any other type of. I guess I didn't have another perception of it, but I mean, they talked about their wives cooking and politics and sports. And I was like, well, shit, this is the Thanksgiving dinner for me. I mean, this is the same shit my family talks about every day. So I was like, well, this is kind of nice. That's it. There was nothing. There was no talk about the industry. There was no talk about work. It was literally just shooting the breeze, and that's what they talked about. And I mean, I came there to talk to them about the film if they wanted. That's what I was thinking we could work on something. They were like, no, they just wanted to sit there and do their thing, and it was pleasant. And that's when I was like, okay, these guys are pretty cool. And so far we've been lucky. So
well, so let me ask you both about this here then, because again, you know, Whitetail, if I remember correctly, is your first film under Muscular Puppy, is that right?
that's
So
right.
you got Whitetail, Redstone, and then you're working on, and then you got Boone, and then you have another project along the way. So it's clearly obvious that the production has gotten bigger and bigger with each film. So for the both of you, and I guess it kind of answered you guys kind of answered my question there, but I guess if you can elaborate a little bit further, from your perspective, with the amount of you know resources you have available from what you didn't have in Whitetail that you had in Boone. I'm sorry, I meant to say in Redstone, and then didn't have in Redstone. Now you have available in Boone. Has that, you know, with the amount of resources and funds that come with those production, have certain things gotten easier for you guys, or has it got more complicated as a result of having more?
complicated.
Okay.
I'll go.
Well, there's different. Okay, so there's different phases, right, Jason?
Right.
Like, in my opinion, when you shooting the film, making the film, Whitetail was, I don't want to say it was easy because no film's ever easy.
Right.
But there was a certain level of I felt like freedom, you know, and we didn't have there. You know, it was like we can do what we want.
Yeah. Okay.
Now that was easier. That was easier because we didn't have more money. And Boone, you know, the last film we did was $2 million. So that kind of budget comes with, you're not. There's some things I did in Whitetail where I was a little bit more like, excuse my French, fuck it, we're gonna do it this way. I don't care what people think. We're gonna do this way.
Right.
Now, oh man, we got a little bit more money. Maybe we should think about something a little safer. And that so it makes it a little bit. But on the flip side of that, though, I got to say that Redstone and Boone were easier sells because we did have more money, and we had I don't want to say more polished, but we had a couple of actors, which sellers are always,
right.
They always look at the actors. So that's easier. You know what I mean? If we could just somehow Jason the two, we'd be awesome.
Yeah. I wouldn't say like more budget, more people. I'd say more problems, more money. Maybe not so much more problems, but more people and managing people is that becomes the hardest part of it, you know. And multi-union film gets kind of tough as well. Certain people can't pick up certain things and move it 6 inches away is very frustrating to watch. You know, slowing things down. It's like, if we could just, I'll just move it, whatever, that kind of thing. You know?
So you mean it's literally like it's not my job, therefore I can't do it? Is it literally like that? Okay, so I've heard about
100%.
that, but I wasn't sure the extent of that. So it really is like that.
Oh yeah.
They look down on it, but we did it anyways. So because we're not, we can't. I'm sorry, we can't take the time. It took too long.
It was weird for me, Rob. Like in some things, I'd been DIT on the films Redstone and Whitetail as well, and was planning on putting it on Boone. Then we ended up hiring a DIT person, Nicole, who was great, and she was awesome. And I don't think she was used to, or any of these people were like, well, you're a producer, why would you do this? Or you can't do this. Being told I can't do it is kind of a problem for me. But I couldn't. True, I couldn't do it. I shouldn't have been doing it. but I felt like I needed to because I'm like, look, that's our movie, you know. It's like I
Right.
gotta be on top of it. So,
But
It's
do you
also
but do you
background.
both feel like when you as the production gets bigger and bigger, and being involved with more unions, more regulations, more rules, and things of that nature? I mean, you mentioned before, Jason, and this is the most common thing that I hear from every indie filmmaker is that you have more control, more freedom within the confines of the budget, but being having a more I guess you could say like mainstream film, if you will, that has that clout. If when you guys are going through that filmmaking process, do you feel like some aspect of it is a little bit of a detriment to the storytelling itself, that I want to approach it like this? Yeah, but is it six? We got this funds right here, and we probably want to use it more on this over here. But if you use it on that, it may not work as well. We don't have time, or we do have the time, but is it really worth it? Like, is there something along the way that for you guys have picked up on that something just wasn't clicking for you, and then you had to just get through with it to try to make the most out of it?
I mean, I try to approach like when Derek finishes the script, whatever, we read the script together because we'll do a full read through together, and then we'll actually start making notes like, okay, this is going to cost this much. Is there another way we could do this that maybe is better? But I always approach the budgeting side as how much is it going to cost to shoot it? Let's not talk about the actors, how much they're going to cost. What's our production cost going to be? How many people do we need to do this? And I try to look at it from that standpoint and like, can this person handle this role and this role and this role? Or like, is there's so much going on in this scene, we're going to need 6 people. We're going to have to bring on some swing guys or whatever. So, um, I don't even know where I was going with that. I just,
Yeah, it's kind of an odd question for me to ask, but I'm just curious about how much of the responsibility in other areas that you probably wouldn't consider before have now been presented to you, where you have to reconsider certain things that when you worked on Whitetail, that it wasn't a concern, and now moving into Boone, and I'm sorry, Redstone, then into Boone,
yeah.
some things have changed, and you guys had mentioned that before, working with the unions, where you don't need to do that because that's not your job, or I'm not going to do that because it's not my job. Like little details like that, I don't think will affect the film, but I would think that because the budget has gotten bigger, and okay, let's be a little more, I want to be more ambitious with taking this story, and then all of a sudden you may come to realize that, hold on one second, that's a good idea, but I don't know if it'll actually work with what you want to do, because since we have a good product that we can sell, that may hamper that process, or that may hamper the ability to sell the film, because you want to add this, we can't do this now. Like, there's got to be some restrictions along the way, I would imagine, that may serve as a detriment to the filmmaking and storytelling aspect of it. I'm not saying it's like that all the time, but I would imagine there's some degree of that as with each film you guys are working on, if that's a fair question to ask.
Yeah, yeah, no. I mean, that's if I can say, it's from the creative part of it, as far as I may have a really intense, gritty idea, and something that I think all of us would go, ooh, why don't we do that one with like a much smaller budget, because it's a little bit risky. Instead of saying, well, let's make this movie, let's go get it. And then the key is, I hate to say it, but I think it's the truth. Jason, you can disagree with me or agree with me, I don't know, but is if you get it to a person that has a named actor, and they love what you're doing, then you can go and get money for anything. Because you look at all these fantastic movies that are out there, and there are a lot of movies I look at it and I go, how the hell did that get made? There is no commercial aspect to this movie at all, and it's a $5 million movie. Well, you got a named actor in there, or the director is established, the writer, the producers, they're all very well known. So when you're starting off like we are, we're unknowns, and it is something that I think we have to, you have to keep up there in your on your mind. I mean, there's some stuff that I want to do pretty soon that we're purposely looking. There's a film that we're working on right now, actually, that we have purposely made for cheaper than our last two. I guess the same size budget as Redstone. That's going backwards by $1.5 million or so, and that's because it's not necessary to make it with much more money, and we want to do it for a you'll be happy it's a vehicle for Billy Blair in the starring role. So, and it's a weird movie, man. You know, it's a weird trippy film.
That weird.
I think it's not what we've done, and it's a bit of a change.
I mean, Boone is not Whitetail either, so
It's not. So
well, so but I mean, when you guys are at this part of your career right now, I mean, if you don't want to answer, I understand, but I mean, how do you feel about the industry now with the regulations that are in place now and experiencing the amount of work that's involved with a bigger budget and so on? Like that, has something changed for you as far as how you look at the industry now under those circumstances, where before, a lot of independent filmmakers, and I've talked about this before, and I'm sure you guys can understand this here, that there, it's if you're not aware of the business aspect of it, it could either make you or break you. And I'm not talking about making it into the business, but I'm talking more about it can make you into a better filmmaker, learning the process, or it could break you because you have this preconceived notion, which may be superficial, and then you thought, no, that's not what I want, and you can't sell the film because it's about, there's a lot of different things that could stop that. But I mean, going through the motions now, has anything changed on your perception for the film industry for each of you?
I'll say that I mean, this is not I guess not related to COVID. It's more about the streaming and all, right? I think that what's changed, and something that I've personally learned, and I can use, Whitetail as an example, is, I wish that we had I wish that we'd had festivals. I think that if we had some film festivals and it wasn't the 2020, they all can't, then I think it would have been would have gotten out there a little bit more than it had. And it would have maybe it could have justified that type of film, I guess, a little bit more than what it was. And I think that's kind of, this is almost going back to your other question as well, Rob, is that's something that we're learning, is every film is a unique distribution process. For every film, there should be a unique distributor, unless that distributor is going to give you a picture deal and they're going to actually finance it, become a production company or your partner. But, every film's different. And I think that what's good and bad is that there's so many streamers out there, and there's so many ways to see movies, that it's not like it was even just 10 years ago, where it was. Now the independent filmmakers can go out there and get their films made, and they can get them out there and show them, which you couldn't do before. So I think that's a positive. I guess the flip side of that is that there is so many, you have to try to do something to stand out. And that's just competition. That's the same in any industry, probably, I would assume. And I think that's something that's changing from what I'm starting to notice, is that there's just so many films that I'll come across a movie I've never seen before. It came out 3 years ago, and I absolutely love it. So why the hell did I not see this? How did this used to? You'd see it. You'd know when the movies were coming out. There's only so many made per year. Now everybody's making films, which is, again, it's good and bad. But that's something that for me has changed it up quite a bit. And that's not even talking about COVID and what's going on with that. And I think that everybody, it's kind of like a, it's a learning lesson. Everybody's learning, right? So this is all so new. 2020. It's only been it'll be now 2 years, maybe. Not even 2 years. Feels like 20.
Feels like like a decade.
So I don't know if that answered the question or not. But my point is that there's a lot of good and bad to the industry right now that's being made, and it just means you gotta work really hard to make as good a movies as you can, or do something to set yourself apart.
Right.
Find the right people to work with too.
For me, Rob, this is crazy, but I mean, I would probably slow it down a little bit. I mean, we've gone. I think what Derek's saying, it's true. Like with Whitetail, I was all like coming on with, producing. I was really thinking about distribution at the end of, like, as we were shooting this thing, thinking about the marketing, pushing this film, and and I thought we had some pretty decent marketing, but then, and we actually got accepted into one big film festival that canceled because of COVID, and that was going to be our springboard into other festivals. But when it canceled, I was like, well, we need to go ahead and just get distribution in, get this film sold, get the investors their money back so we can go do it again. And I don't think we needed to do that. I wish if we could go back again and do it all over, I'd say, well, let's just sit on it for a year. We don't need it to be seen for a year, and let's get it into those festivals, because I think then we'd actually get more eyes on it and get more people talking about it and seeing it.
Right.
But I think I felt a little bit desperate, like, oh man, I don't want to be one of those guys that goes out and we make a film and it doesn't get its money back, and we got to go find that next set of investors, and we got to go tell people. Like, I feel very responsible for the money of the investors,
right?
And so I'm immediately looking at like, oh, this thing's got to get distributed.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, for me, I do want to slow down a little bit and actually feel bad now, because Derek's always needing like, hey, what if we had like 20 days or whatever? I'm like, 18. Okay, well, you get 15. Give them some more days, and maybe that will come across a little bit better on screen too, because maybe sometimes things feel a little bit rushed, and they are. So
I see. Well, so let me ask you guys about, when you guys, so this is for me to bring up now, because, I've told you before about my thoughts on Redstone, not in depth, of course, but my question to you both now is that, I know, Jason, you had mentioned before that, you guys have, you had to have thick skin to be in this business, and there's, for obvious reasons, but when you guys are going through making a film, does it ever cross your mind about what will people think of the movie? Not just talking about the distribution guys or the marketing guys. I'm talking about like the audience. Like, how will people view the film when as you guys are making the movie? Like, do you guys have that thought process go through your head, or you're not concerned about it at that point, and then you think about it once you're editing and you realize, oh, wait a minute, this is not as good as I thought it was going to come out. We're going to trim this down because I think the audience may not react to it as I hope they would, or as I think they might, rather. So does that cross your mind at all, as far as what the critiques are going to be with your film, at any point in the process?
Go ahead, Derek. I think we're pretty far apart on this, and I think this is probably where we meet in the middle.
Okay.
I mean, I'll tell you why. Like, editing Whitetail, right? It was me, Derek, Amanda. And the first cut of Whitetail, if you can imagine, because it's a long, slow-paced film. It was 2 hours and 40 minutes. So, and that's a lot of, like, Derek wanting to see some things that was part of the vision. And then there's me that has to think about the commercial viability of it,
right.
But also artistic too. I mean, it still has to work, and I don't want to take away from this guy's vision, but
right.
So I'm not thinking about it during shooting. I'm pretty confident when I'm watching, what we're getting and stuff. I don't know that there's any times I've been on set watching. Well, there has been a few, but we correct, like where I saw something that wasn't done right, like properly, that we actually got to go back and redo. But usually it's in the edit, I think. That's where, like, I get a little surprised, or maybe that's where we start seeing, dang, this isn't what I thought it was when I was seeing it on set. So does that make sense? Derek, what do you?
Yeah, no, I mean, it does. I mean, it doesn't matter how, we're very prepared, I'll tell you that. Just like there are a lot of people that do that, and there's some filmmakers that are like, no, Werner Herzog has said storyboarding's for cowards, I think is what he said.
I think he did say that, yeah.
The Coen brothers are cowards.
I'm a coward. I like storyboarding, but I also, it's organic in a way, the whole process. And things change, things come up. I can honestly say that I've never once during the shoot or in pre-production, for that matter, have given a moment, anything. I don't care about the audience, not to be mean, but
no, I understand where you're coming from. Yeah.
If you did that, you would be crazy, because for every person that digs it and loves the film, there's going to be people that just absolutely hate it. Yeah. And there's nothing that you can do about that. And if that's hanging in the back of your mind as you're whether you're the director, the producer, or the star, the actors, or whatever, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, that's not a good place to be, a headspace. That's just not. You need to be there focusing on that, getting the film made the best that you can make it. And then you worry about all that shit whenever you're in post, and you go, damn, that, oh, well, should, never mind. You know, so, but you know, you worry about that stuff later. And even then, I'll be honest, it's like, this is again something that I am learning that's a little bit different, is that, and that comes with a little bit of a bigger budget, and just it's more accessible. Redstone's the most accessible out of the two. It's in more platforms. It's about to be on Redbox and DVD and Best Buy and what's the other, Walmart and Target, I think, this month coming up. So it's not out on that stuff yet. So it's gonna be the most. So I plan on having a lot of people, you know, they either love it or they hate it, you know, and you can't worry about that stuff. You know? Otherwise, Roadhouse would have never been made. The national treasure. You know? Come on.
A national treasure.
But I'm serious though. How many movies that we all love, you know, would not have never been made, and you know, if they were worried about just the audience. You know, for me, I think that right now it is. Can we be proud of it, and can the investors be happy with it, and can they have the confidence, you know, to get it, to put the money into it and say, we're going to make this film and we think we're going to make money in this movie.
Yeah.
You know
what, Rob, I think, and Derek is like 100% confident going into it. Like, that's the kind of cool thing to see him work. He's not a wishy-washy guy and doesn't like, oh, maybe we should do this or do that. No, he already knows what he's going to shoot. So like that instills confidence, I think, in everybody that's actually working on the production, and the actors too.
Right.
So you have to like go in there like that, right?
Just trick them. You do. You just say, yeah, I know what I'm doing. Just keep going.
So I'm and just so you know, and believe it or not, this is actually true on my for me to say this here. When this movie does come out on, because I still collect physicals, you can tell from behind me, I love physical media. So when that movie does come out, I still intend on buying, because honestly, even though, you know, I have my criticisms about the movie, I do appreciate what you guys were doing with the film. Like, there really was something that I saw that you guys were going for that I really did gravitate to. So, and because of that, I do, and I love what you guys have done with Whitetail, but I still want to support with what you guys are doing, because like I said, as I was saying before, I love what you guys have done with Whitetail. And, you know, I have my criticisms about Redstone, but that doesn't mean that, well, because I didn't gravitate toward like I did with Whitetail, that I'm not going to be supporting it here, because just because there's, at least for me, one thing I didn't like doesn't mean the next one is not going to be as good, or it's not going to get better. I mean, even Steven Spielberg has quite a few flops on his end. But doesn't mean, you know, the next film that's coming out is not going to be any better. It's probably going to be just as good, if not, even better than what we expected. Quentin Tarantino had that with Death Proof, which wasn't well received, or I think it was well received, but it didn't do very well. Then he came up with Inglourious Basterds, you know, and I'm like, holy shit, he's back. Well, he's been there the whole time. It's just
he never left.
He's had a misstep, right? So I still perceive that here, to be completely frank with you. So I really do mean when I say that I will be buying this movie, because I do want to support, because I love what you guys are doing here. At the same time, this leads in point to my next question. This kind of takes away from what we're getting into with Redstone, but I'm actually curious to hear your guys' thoughts about, you know, a movie that, and this is trivial, but I really am genuinely interested in your thoughts here. A movie for you guys that you know most people hate, but you love, and it can be anything. The reason I'm asking is because I'm curious to see what your tastes are, as far as like what most people tend to like, that you guys will probably hold in such high regard. But then there's got to be a movie out there that you love so much that most people hate. And for me, that movie, is Street Fighter. That's a terrible movie, but that's literally my top 10 favorite movies of all time. I have The Godfather at number 1. Street Fighter is like in the top 10 for me.
That's awesome.
So like, but that, I know that movie isn't good, but for some reason, I love that film. We just got the Steelbook edition that just came out earlier this month. I love that movie.
Did you play a lot of Street Fighter? Like,
yeah, I did.
Well,
yeah, I did. That was my game. That was my jam back in the day. So, but I mean, like, again, like that to me is like one of those very rare films that it's not very good, but for whatever reason, it clicks for me. And I've talked about it with other people, and they have the like awful reaction to that movie, and I get it, but I don't care. But I'm sure for you guys, there's got to be a film out there for you that may be that Street Fighter for you that is so bad, but for whatever reason it clicks for you. So I'm just curious from your perspective of what that would be.
Man, I don't know, because these, maybe it's the same way you feel about Street Fighter, but like for me, maybe it's Vision Quest. Like I love that movie. I felt about Vision Quest.
I remember that movie. I've only seen it once, but I remember that film.
It's a coming of age story. Matthew Modine. I mean,
Yeah.
great movie about the wrestler.
You should have seen Jason, Rob. They filmed some of that at Spokane, and we were up there filming Boone in Washington, and that's where they filmed it at. And Jason's like, "Oh God, this is where they filmed Vision Quest." Like 4 out of 5 people were like, "What the hell is that? What Vision?"
Yeah.
Know that movie?
Okay. Yeah.
Some Indian movie. It's like, I don't know.
Well, what about for you, Derek? I mean, is there a film that comes to mind that is so bad that you don't care, you love it just as much?
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily. I don't know what its score is or what people thought of it. I just remember when I first saw it, I hated it because I'm an Alien fan, and it was Alien Resurrection when I saw it in theaters when I was about 13, 14, and I hated it. Well, when I got older, I started to get more into film. It's a couple of years older than that, and I realized it was made by Jean-Pierre Jeunet, who's one of my top 3 filmmakers of all time. Terry Gilliam, Jean-Pierre Jeunet. And I don't know, and it goes really wacky after that. Goes those two to Abel Ferrara, but the point is yeah, I don't know why. It's a weird segue.
That's
there.
Your Street Fighter director.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. But Jean-Pierre Jeunet made it, and then when I watched it again when I was a little older, I was like, my God, it's beautiful and it's great. I love it. It's fun. Nobody likes the whole Ripley aspect of being regen or whatever, but you know what? It is what it is, and if you just watch it as a film, it's a really pretty film. It's entertaining. That's fun, and I like that one. And but I don't know how well that was received. I can't remember.
It wasn't very well received. I remember that when it came out, it was like bump, like it was just puked on by everybody when it came out.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then I guess the other one for me would be probably, oh man, what was that one film that came out that really? I can't even remember it, so it's a pretty bad movie. So I guess it's not in my top 5 then, but I really liked it. I could watch it over and over again. I guess, hey, any 80s Seagal movie, you know, when he can still.
They're not bad movies. Now, if you want to talk about the movies he's done in the 2000s, that's a whole different ballgame there.
Like the one with
Above the Law. First one was amazing.
Love that movie.
Amazing movie.
Which one? Which one?
Above the Law.
No, it's the one with the Jamaican band guys.
Hard to Kill.
Swords and stuff in there.
Oh,
Voodoo.
Hard to Kill.
Yeah, was it Marked for Death or
Marked for Death? That's
Marked
it.
for Death. That's the one. Yeah. I haven't seen.
I could watch that.
It's a great movie. I think that's a great movie. It's a silly film, but I think it's still a great movie. Well, I mean, so you know, and the reason, like I said before, I asked that because with you guys, because you know, I think one thing that what I want people to understand is that, you know, and I said it before a million times with just about every episode, is that I want people to respect the process. I know people can be very critical, and a lot of times they don't know what it's involved to make a film. I've never worked in a production, but I understand the process enough to respect it. And even if I don't like a movie, because there's plenty of films that I don't like, but I understand what people are trying to go for when they're making the film. And then when you come to find out, especially in a lot of films that were intended on being really, really good, and for one reason or another got interfered with the studio or whatever the case may be, that hindered that process, and you realize, holy shit, they were actually making a good film, but this all got cut out, or that part got taken out altogether because they couldn't afford it, or whatever the case may be. So when people learn that process, especially when it comes to films, I think I'm hoping that would change the perception to look at the filmmaking process with more respect and with a lot more understanding. The problem that I have with a lot of, as far as the general audience is concerned, is that they don't care. And the reason why I have a problem with it is because, you know, even though I don't care because I don't care for video games, but I respect how much work is involved to make it. I just don't care to play it. But I won't be dismissive as I would be, you know, 10 plus years ago, understanding how hard it is to make these things. But for films, for me, because I love movies so much, for me, this conversation or have to speak with you guys is really important for a number of different reasons we discussed before. We're unofficially here as we were talking that even though I had perceptions of the movie with Redstone, and there were some things I didn't like about it, but I still appreciate with what's being done there, and I hope that even though if I say I didn't like it, not that my opinion really matters, but if I say I didn't like it, I don't want that to be the perception for people to say, well, he said it sucks, so I'm not going to check it out. I still think it should be checked out regardless, because what I love, what I didn't like, you may love, and I've recommended The Godfather to everyone in my house. Not a single person can sit through it because they think it's so boring. And I was like, that's the greatest movie ever in the world. But for whatever reason, they fall asleep through it. And I'm like, all right, well, whatever. I got my son to watch the extended cut of the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Rings, and he had a fight to watch that because I begged him, please watch it with me. I just want you to see what it's like. Why I want you to know why I love it. And then he was like, it's a good movie, but I'm never again. And that's the people, like, those are the people who I want to reach out to. Like, just give it a shot, and you'd be surprised what you could get out of that.
Sure.
So I'm hoping that in whoever checks this out here, that they understand that just because I have a criticism about the film, that doesn't mean that I don't think it's worth checking out. It is worth checking out because obviously, so film is subjective, but I guess I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts now. And if you're comfortable with answering, or if you're not comfortable with it, I get it. But in having this conversation as we're going along the way, for you guys, in me chatting and telling you how I felt about the movie, does that kind of affect and how you are approaching the conversation? Like, oh my God, he didn't like it. How do I going to go about it now? Or are you guys looking at it in a way where, you know what, let's just go for it, balls to the walls and see what happens? Like, because I think, I'm not sure if it's a fair assessment, but I'm not sure if this is the first time where you had the conversation to this extent to talk about a movie that I didn't necessarily like as much as your previous film. But what's your guys' perception on that as the conversation is progressing here for both of you?
Like, I think it's cool, man. I think that we can sit here, and I love it, honestly, because it's not fake, right? And we can like actually sit down and talk, and yeah, like Street Fighter's not for me, Rob. So like, we love it.
All right, interview's done. All right, good night. No,
Vision Quest is best movie ever made, and you might not think so, and Derek may not think so, but I think respecting like what you were talking about going into it, the work and like that, for me, that's pretty cool. I mean, that matters. And that's why I think people should actually help each other. We might have a better world if people could just be nicer and have conversations where they're not feeling attacked or anything. So I don't know. I don't feel like this changes anything, honestly. I mean, if you go look at our reviews on IMDb, there are going to be some good ones, and going to be some bad ones, and there are going to be some like fake ones. So it's like, I don't know. It doesn't really change it for me. No, I'm glad, man. I'm glad you're honest. I'd rather have that honest opinion. I mean, I've had actors in the film tell us that they were in multiple films with us and what their favorite films are, and they didn't like this one as much as the other one, and that's fine. I mean, they're different movies, so.
Hey, that whole thing about you love your children equally, that's bullshit. Like,
I only have one kid, so all the attention went to him.
I've only got one as well, but when they say that about your films, I can tell you, which I'm not going to, but I can say I have my favorite film. Of the three we've collaborated on, I have the one that I'm like, that's my favorite. And the other ones I'm like, I'm proud of them, because the thing is that making a film, nobody's curing cancer. There's certainly way harder endeavors out there, manual labor, people building railroads, scuba diving down, doing the Navy, the Army. There's so many other things. We're just making movies, but to get together, with a group of people and to do that with the money and it takes a lot. It doesn't matter if you're shooting with 15 grand or 20 grand for your whole movie, or you're up to the 25, $30 million films. I have a lot of respect for it. Anybody that can finish them, I have a lot of respect for people that do that, because there's so many people that will go out there and like, I want to make a movie, and then the first few steps. It's not any diss on them. It's just it's a monumental task whenever you start it out. You go, dang, I did not think it was going to be this hard. And they may not be as fortunate as us and lucky as us to be able to make the film come to fruition. And that's the truth of it, So it's a really difficult thing. And I just have a lot of respect for people that do it. And I also have a lot of respect for people that give honest reviews, people that aren't just there to tear down, those people can go away. They're useless. But the people that are there to actually say, this movie, even if it is brutal and just goes, look, this movie sucked. It's just not for me. I hate this movie. I still, you watched it, or you watched some of it. So thanks, and I'm glad that you checked it out a little bit. If you don't like it, you don't like it. That's what you sign up for when you make films.
Right.
That's the thing that I guess is kind of new to me, because before, my 2 feature films before, that while they were out distributed, they're not seen by a lot of people. They weren't major distributors or anything like that. And the short films were at festivals, and the people that go and, for the most part, they had a pretty good reception. They did pretty well. That's how I got to where I was making films. So Whitetail was my first one in a while that was out in stores or anything, streaming. And you get, for somebody may say, I love this. Like right. you said you liked it a lot. You enjoyed it. There are things that you take, whatever. But you got other people out there that are like, this is garbage. I can't stand it. Yeah. They didn't even shoot a deer. Somebody like
somebody.
That was an actual complaint of the movie.
Yeah, which I thought was really funny. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But you're always gonna have people that do that. I've got a guy that I really like right now. I think I've never met him personally, but Billy's worked with him quite a bit. He's a filmmaker in Oklahoma, and his movies are just awesome, I think. I just enjoy them so much. And they're not exactly the best rated films out there. They're not the worst, but then I'm kind of going, well, what the hell's going wrong? Like, this is a great movie. I think it is a great movie. Yeah. And you can't make everybody happy.
Yeah.
Unless you got Brad Pitt. But, Jason, get on there, man.
I just need some budget.
Well, I think with what we were able to converse here, to me it means a lot, because I'll be completely honest with you. I think I said it before in the beginning here, where I've always wanted to have this type of conversation. And here's the thing, and I don't know how you guys feel about it here too. And then again, if you don't want to comment in, I get it. One of my biggest complaints when it comes to promoting a movie, is I think it's too backwards. It's too old school, in my opinion. And I'm not trying to disrespect anybody out there who does this here, because I understand that there's a formula. So certain PR firms want to have it done a certain way, and I get all that. But when you get to hear the same questions being asked over and over and over again, there's nothing that I'm taking away from what's being talked about the film, other than maybe certain details that maybe one previous 5-minute interview had covered for like a split second, that I thought, let's focus on that. But they got to keep moving. And then the next interview, something else may pop up, you get nothing out of it. And then the next one, something else may pop out that may be interesting, but again, we got to keep moving. Something about that for me just doesn't click for me. And I'm always of the mindset that if we could take the time to just speak on the filmmaking process, what you guys went through, and then learn a little bit more about yourself along the way, in my mind, that to me sells the film more so than, I wouldn't say talking about the movie, but just really more about, who you are and, what you've been through to make the movie. And then for someone who may not think twice about it, hearing you talk, I would hope they would say, you know what, I like this person, or I like what they've said about what they went through to make the film. And they pointed this out. I'm going to check out the movie. And I would hope that would bring them incentive to do so. But again, if you're doing like, tell me what it was like working with Steven Spielberg. Well, he's fantastic. And then the next interview, what was it like working with Spielberg? Well, he's fantastic. There's nothing I'm going to get at. It becomes pretty redundant for me.
Yep.
So I'm not sure how your perception on that is here for you, because again, this is kind of an obscure way to kind of talk about the movie. But does your perception about when you guys are promoting the film, do you guys have a preference, or do you prefer that formula, or I mean, I don't know how you feel about it. If it's a fair question to ask you both about that.
Yeah, no, it's a fair question, Rob. Honestly, doing these interviews and podcasts and stuff that we've been doing for the last year and a half, I don't really know. I don't go into it expecting anything, to be honest. Like, I don't know. I don't even know how we're supposed to be doing it. I mean, this is like, we're not a studio or anything. I mean, you know, we're lucky enough to be on your podcast, and thank you for having us. I mean,
thank you for reaching out and asking me to be on it, because honestly,
I mean,
rare that I
get
get
Shine House, Shine House group and the girls there kind of led us into getting to do a lot of these interviews and stuff. And so next time I'll tell her, make sure you get somebody that likes the movie before you get us on. I'm kidding, man. This is what's so cool about this.
Yeah.
I'll tell Derek this was not my favorite of the three, so I've told him it doesn't matter.
Okay.
I think you know, Rob, I can't stand. There's nothing worse than buying a DVD and it says of a movie I really want to see, right? And it says the behind the scenes featurette.
Oh my God.
And it is a 10-minute thing
Yeah.
with the stars and
those EPKs. Yeah.
And they're like, you know what I love about the director was he knew what he wanted. It's kind of your job.
Yeah.
Yeah. What the hell else are you gonna say? They do it on all of them, or they say, oh, it's such a great imagination.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. My favorite documentaries are the ones that are kind of fly on the wall. They're just there watching the process.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can't remember their names, but they're the duo that made the 12 Monkeys, the DVD for 12 Monkeys. Is like,
oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that's a great documentary. Yeah.
Yeah, and they did the original Man Who Killed Don Quixote that failed, and then it turned into a documentary feature.
Yeah.
And those guys, they just sit there and they get all the grit, they get all the real things.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. Like, I would much rather see what it actually takes to make a film, than just people kind of smiling. Now, our distributor may be saying something differently because they're the ones that are setting all this stuff up. But for the most part, not this one, but like our Shine House, our marketing group did for the last film, but Cinedigm does for Stone and Boon, and they're like, no, we don't want that. We want the press junket stuff and all that. But I'm like yourself. I'm a fan of films. I'm a fan of films and music, and I'm eclectic, and I like different type of things, and so I don't want to sit there and buy a freaking movie and have it be a 10-minute. Especially on a movie that I really love, that I want to see him get into the grittiness of it. And it's just 10 minutes.
That's one thing about the Peter Jackson's, Lord of the Rings, not with the exception of the Hobbit, because I honestly didn't check all of them out. But the Lord of the Rings was one of those great examples where they had like hours upon hours of what it took to make the movie. And it's like years of material that they have there. And that goes the same for King Kong as well, too. And I think one documentary that I thought was way better than the movie, which I liked the film, was the making of the Expendables, which I thought was incredible what they had to go through to make that movie, especially when you follow Sly's journey. When you watch the movie, like I enjoyed it, but the documentary was way more entertaining because you like learned all the bones he's ended up breaking, the surgeries he had to have, and all that stuff. Like, I wish we got more of that. And from my perspective, I'll be honest, if I'm buying a DVD and if it's gonna have the same bullshit EPK packaging, I'd rather just have the film and just remove all that stuff out, because why waste the consumer's time at that point? But
also scary too, because it's the whole the DVDs with them fading out.
Yeah.
That I don't streamers maybe streamers will start doing a page of documentaries or something, but they don't.
I hope so. Yeah.
They're not have. But once if it does, God forbid, because I love DVDs, I have a collection as well. And VHS and all that. So if that goes out, then that's gonna be kind of sad. Where are we gonna watch there's got to be a place for it, hopefully.
I think Vudu has something like that too, and I know Disney Plus has them too. When you watch their movies that they have on their platform, there are sections where they have, I think it's called extras or something like that. I haven't checked it out in quite some time, but you'll have all the behind the scenes. But again, it's just a standard EPK formula. Hey, what was it like? It's just standard fare, and and I get that, but but I have a lot of problems with it because I want more, and what I want is the honesty, and I understand there are certain things that you're not going to want to commentate on for a number of different reasons, and I get that. But if there's an opportunity to commentate on, I hated working on the set that day because of it was so difficult, whatever the case may be. But then when you see the performance, like, holy shit, it was a shitty day for him, but that performance was fantastic. It's like The Godfather. It was one of the worst productions that Francis Ford Coppola ever gone to make the movie, but it turned to be one of the greatest movies ever made. And you're like, holy shit. So much so that the filmmaking process was way more interesting than the film itself, which the film is fantastic, to the point where they're making a show about what it took to make the movie. I think it's called The Offer. So like, there's so much you can take from that too, but I don't think people really care, which I wish they did, but this is coming from a guy that loves films, and virtually everyone here in my house could care, could get two shits about it. So I feel like I'm like the only one in my family that's like that likes the most uncommon thing, and for people that enjoy and consume the stuff on a day-to-day basis here. But I just don't understand the perception that they have of the film when they just kind of dismiss it, and don't focus on the details that I think they should focus on, about how you transition from one scene to the next, and how you know how to edit a film, and how you know how to pace a movie, how to let the scene play itself out. Most people just don't care for that stuff, and I understand, but I can go on and on about that stuff because I have big issues about that sort of stuff.
We got to give a big shout out though, Jason. So you mentioned The Offer. Our boy James Matteo, he's in the next film Boon, and he plays. You'll know him if you see his face. He's really good. He's been in everything from. He was a Lost Boy in Hook, was his first movie, and then he was in Band of Brothers, Basketball Diaries. He's fantastic. He's one of my favorite people. He's in The Offer. He got a big nice role in that. So he plays a mafioso or somebody in the real world part of it, like when it was going on.
Right.
So it's pretty cool. He was filming.
Man, he's a great guy. So
great actor.
You said James Matteo, is that right?
Yeah, James Matteo. Yeah. When you see him, you'll be like, oh, I know.
That name sounds familiar, but there's okay. Well, so I want to bring something up here real quickly about Redstone then, because here's what I want to here's what I do want to give you guys your props on. I felt like it was definitely an ambitious project that you guys were taking on here, and I could see that there was a lot of things you guys wanted to take on, and expanding on a story, adding more locations, and making having Texas as a real backdrop to really feel the area, if you will. I hope that makes sense. But when you guys were shooting the movie, and when you guys were looking at, you previously had a different location in mind. Obviously, COVID had halted that part of the production. Then you had to move it to a different location where the testing for COVID was, the diagnosis for people who were getting COVID was a lot less. When you guys were shooting the film, did you feel more comfortable with what you had initially envisioned from where you guys wanted to be shooting the film to where you guys were shooting it now, where you really get to see a different part of Texas that maybe most people may not have been accustomed to seeing on film? Because I'll be honest with you, I've never been to Texas, but I could tell that this is a part of Texas that I am not familiar with, considering where most films in Texas are shot at, in Austin, Dallas, and other main locations. But for this part of the state there, that's something that's completely new to me, which I did appreciate with what you guys were going for here. So I wasn't sure when you guys had looked on, when you guys were on set with what you're shooting, is if something had changed for you about how you want to display the backdrop, if you will, of where you guys were shooting for those locations.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of spots that were pretty much exactly what we wanted, even though we had to move Corsicana. There were some things that changed a little bit, which was the small town aspect. It was supposed to be downtown Fort Worth, right, which is where we were going to film was a little bit of an older area, a little rough some places. We wanted it to have that kind of edge to it. And when we moved to Corsicana, it did make it a little bit more rural as opposed to what it was going to be originally. And yeah, it kind of gave it a whole new feel, But as far as each set, like trailer homes and small, neighborhood, that stuff probably wouldn't have changed much. That was what really changed was the downtown part where they kidnapped the girl, and just kind of those locations. Another one would have been, I guess, there's a scene in there at the lake, and originally that's supposed to be a creek, kind of like a city creek kind of thing. And the lake just gave us this big. Of course, we're shooting quick anamorphic lenses, so we're kind of like kids in a candy shop. We're going to shoot whatever we can because it looks so pretty. So I would say that a lot of it a lot of it stayed the same for the most part, but but as far as logistically and just shooting everything, we could. I don't know. I don't want to say that we could not have done it in Fort Worth, but my God, it would have been so much harder. We just had the world is your oyster when you're in Corsicana. Robert Johnson.
Yeah, Robert Johnson. If you're working with Robert, you need to get some stuff done. Of course, that's the place. So it really added. I was going to say logistically, it really helped us, and I think that's probably the only way we got through 18 days was because we were there in Corsicana to shoot this. So,
was that the first time for you both being in that part of the area of Texas?
Shooting there.
Yeah,
okay.
shooting there. Yeah,
it's only about 45 minutes from
okay.
Yeah, it's about 45 minutes south of downtown. I mean, I've driven through there. I've never stopped and hung out in the town or anything until this movie, though. So
okay. Oh, like so when you guys are on set shooting, how does that? I mean, how much time do you guys? You may have answered my question, but I honestly forgot if you did. How much time do you guys have to prepare to scout the locations and then get ready to start rolling the camera? Because with the turnaround time you guys had to shoot in out in Fort Worth and then going out to that part of the area, was that kind of? Did it kind of? Were you guys just kind of just going along the way? Okay, we have this location. We'll check it out the day before, and then we'll be shooting there the next day. Like, how is that all coordinated with you guys?
It was a 50-50, right? I mean, it was like there were some locations, Jason, I think that we had for a while that we were like really picky about, and then there were some that we during the shoot we would get when we'd wrap, we would get in a car and go with somebody and find what we're going to shoot the next day. There were a couple of those situations, but the downtown stuff, walking through the alleyways, that stuff was done. All of that was we even had we had what was it some video storyboards, whatever you want to call them. We went out there and just shot some the stuff with the kid walking in the back.
You had only about 3 days of actually visiting Corsicana and looking at locations, though, right? Was it about 3 days?
I mean, I did a lot more than that, but that was Austin and me.
3 days.
Well, you're further away than Austin and I. Or the other producer would be we went in and then we would take pictures and find this stuff, and he was also the one that had the connection with Robert Johnson, so we were kind of building that up. And then Jason, you came in when we was getting closer to the set because you were dealing with all the other stuff that you do, SAG and everything. That was enough as it is. So we were doing all the location scouting during that time, and then there were some things we were supposed to have an apartment.
I was thinking about the apartment because that just never really came to fruition. What we were trying to get. So there was a few things that had to be adjusted. So.
It's basically it's like you finish a day. This is how it works. It's like we finished our day of shooting. We're you're exhausted, you're sticky, and then myself and the AD and the DP, we get in a car or two cars and we drive to a place that Robert or Jason or whoever found it said may look good for the next day. And then we'd have to go there with our, and we'd have to figure out where we're going to shoot it, how we're going to shoot it. And then we have to give that to the producers to figure out the logistics of where they're going to set up everything. We're going to have Video Village, or we're not going to have Video Village, or we're going to, this and that and the other one. So we don't allow director's chairs on our sets. No lazy people. So,
no leaning against the walls either, right?
We swapped it for candy, right? Some better candy and some beer. So, but that's how it basically worked location-wise. But I mean, really, that's why I said it. It was similar, in my opinion. It was similar to Whitetail. Whitetail was this, 80 acres or so with a house, and the film for the most part is all there, And Corsicana is, I don't know how many square miles, but it's not very big. And we had our we had our office, which I don't even think I visited once or maybe twice. The rest is in the our RVs and the whatever you call them, Star Wagons or whatever it is, and all that good stuff. And then just around town. I mean, and that's the good thing is the company moves. We're going 3 minutes down the road, guys. So we get a splinter crew. We can drive down there and film what we need, and then come back while they're setting up the next scene. And that is the biggest difference because Fort Worth is so much bigger. We would have been like, if we're going back to home base, it could have been a 15-minute drive. And of course,
traffic, right? Yeah.
Traffic's awful.
So is traffic really bad out there in the Dallas Fort Worth area?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's DFW is yeah,
Yeah.
I would say it's hell. It's like,
So Corsicana made that easy. It was funny. There was a guy that actually brought some of the crew beer on set, like came with a 12-pack. It was process trailer days, and we were driving down this road, with the car and turning around at his house. So I guess he just kind of, he was like, what's going on? And then eventually he just kind of became a fan of the movie, and he'd show up, and he brought like 12-pack of beer to like G&E, and it was kind of cool. He's like, oh, you guys are working hard, have a beer. He showed up
That's
twice
nice.
at two different locations.
Only in Texas, right?
Yeah, man, it was funny.
they were very, we had some nice people. That trailer home we shot in where the brothers live was,
Right.
we set dressed half of it was already there. It was all good colors. Like if red was the dominant color.
Right.
Find red, we'd leave it. And then David Moline did a great job of and Mandy Myers. They worked on it together as production design and the set decorator, and they did a great job. But there's only so much. I mean, that's real. That trailer home was real, and it was interesting to shoot there. And they were the sweetest people.
Right.
They were like they let us do it. And that again, that's the small town, and that's them saying we want you guys to do your thing, and Robert Johnson, his connections with those people. So.
Would you guys?
Sorry.
No, go on. What you
real quick. When we shot that day there, they sat outside and under a shade tree, and I remember the woman, forget her name, but her mother was there, and she was a big fan of Desperate Housewives, so she got to meet Neil and got a picture. That was really cool for them. So it was cool for us to see that. So.
Maybe, I guess I was just about to say, I guess before you said Neil, that makes sense, because I was like, I don't know why anybody would want to sit outside and watch a movie crew for that long. Like if I'm not in it, I could see myself watching for maybe like 30 minutes and been like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then I would have gone, but no, they had chairs, and they could have gone anywhere. They were like, this is really interesting. They were so sweet. They were very nice people.
That's nice. So would you guys ever go back and shoot in there again if given the opportunity, if it calls for it, where the story would need a backdrop like that? Is that something you would reconsider doing down the line of the shoot out there again?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's actually one of the places when I'm reading scripts, I think about that first, like, because what we can get out of Corsicana, the support you get from the city itself with Robert as well, and just some of the people we know down there, and it being close to home, right? I mean, we're 45 minutes drive south of Dallas, and if your crew wants to come in or go home for the weekend, they can. So.
And so here's a good comparison for you, Rob. Like, Boone was shot in Spokane, Washington, and we don't obviously have the same connections there. So you're having to pay for certain things that in Corsicana you do not have to. One of those things is road closures. So when we're in a downtown area up there in Washington, we're shooting an action scene, and you have, and I can't, forgive me, Jason, I can't remember what they're called, but city people in the vests, and they would put the stop sign up, and we would roll, and nobody could drive through this main street, and then when we would cut, they were allowed to take a few cars. And when you're shooting at 7 a.m. and it's a morning traffic, you get a lot of people that are like, get the fuck out of my way.
Yeah. Honking and
it costs,
yelling at us coming by.
It costs a lot of money. Now in Corsicana, we're gonna shoot here in this strip. Is that cool? Yeah, that's fine. I'll let the owners know of the buildings. Just that's good. And it wasn't an action scene. There was no guns or anything. It was a scene with a car that rears around and grabs the girl. That's about the most action in it. But
right.
We have about 5 or 6 takes of that, maybe 7. And it's funny because there were some people in the background. You have this actress just screaming her head off. And the take I kind of wanted to use was the dude just putting his tools in the back of his truck and just didn't turn around.
Girl,
I was like, kind of want to go there and be like, that's very rude. This woman needs your help. You didn't even say it. He literally was just like, dude got in his truck, drove off. So, but nobody, you don't really get much hard. Or if you are using the weapons, of course, obviously we were very careful and everything, but we had our armor and we had all the safety precautions. But, if we could call, the police and then, or the station and say, hey, we're gonna be shooting some shots around the railroad tracks here. There's a couple of businesses. We just want to let you know.
Right.
Rob, I was actually really concerned about this one day. You know, the hotel scene. There's a shootout there at the hotel parking lot. And I was more concerned that somebody driving by in Texas was going to see something going on and stop and shoot one of our actors or something, you know, like think it was a real gunfight going on.
So you know, let me I'm curious about, you know, when you guys were shooting out there then, so because of you guys were able to kind of maneuver yourself around certain things that did it, having some of the freedom to kind of move around in shooting at the location, did that have an ease on your budget as a result of that, because you guys were able to move a little bit more freely, say, as opposed to when you guys were shooting Boone out in Spokane?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd say to some degree, yeah.
Okay.
Well, it goes in pages, right? It goes, I mean, that's how I look at it. It right? Because we're able to shoot, say, 7 pages in a day, because we may have to jump from one alley to another. And if we were shooting up there, you know, it would have been, we can only shoot these 4 pages, and then 3 pages we're trying to shoot. We got to go around the corner and do all, you know, and that's the way I look at it. We moved a lot quicker, more efficiently when we're, you know, you have this one street main town and you've got all these scenes, and we could, you know, jump here.
It was definitely less to worry about from a producer's standpoint of like having to make a call to a company to shut down the road. How much is that going to cost? Things like that. And which actually increases the crew size, because instead of like 60 people crew showing up at 65 that day or whatever. So,
oh, I see.
Yeah, I mean, you save for sure. It doesn't mean like, because I think people will equate this like, oh, if you're not doing union or you're not having to pull permits and stuff, then you're doing something that's dangerous, and or you're not paying the crew well, and that's definitely not it. I mean, we have union guys working on Redstone that just weren't working, you know, for IATSE, you know, that during, because it was not IATSE production, so, but it was a SAG production, so, but we still pay, you know, the same rates and things like that, and we're still careful. I mean, these people are professionals and will not let us not be careful and do stupid stuff. So I don't think we would do it ourselves anyways.
So, you know, I'm curious for both of you, because you mentioned about, you know, as far as how it affects in your production with the question I just asked. When you guys are, and I think Jason, you may have already answered the question for me earlier, but when you guys are thinking of a story, or in this case for you, Derek, when you're writing a story, do you think about the cost that would be involved, or you just write the story and then figure it out, like, okay, this would be too much money to do this or that, or do you already have it in mind about, okay, so I'm going to write the movie like this, so that way it can stay within this range and the budget for when we hopefully get to shoot down the line? Do you guys have a process of how that would work for you guys when you guys are creating the story and writing the script?
It depends. There are certain, because I just love writing, period, you know, like I love it, and hate it, but but I mean, it really depends. There will be an idea that I have written a script just very recently that we know damn well we would need at least 10 to 15 million to make that, and that's a long term, you know, thing. So we put it away, and then if we're thinking of like, okay, what's our slate, and are we going to find private financing, or are we going to try to get it, you know, co-financed by something, or are we going to go to a fund? Then it's a little more of a, you know, I'll ask Jason and say, okay, what do you know, there's this script, and then there's this one that we could make, you know, in Texas, or we could do this one, which we need to go shoot in, you know, multiple locations. $5 million script. I got this idea that could be done for $700,000, and most of the time I write both because I like to, and then we just pick it. But no, I mean, it's not really. I don't think we have yet to come up with a group idea to say we're going to do this as a company. Like I said, all this kind of just started. It just kind of happened, and then we're getting closer to that. I think where now we're starting to kind of have a consensus. But before it was like, there's Whitetail because we were trying to get it made, and then we did Redstone because I had the script and we did that, and then Boone happened because of Neil McDonough, and he wanted to make that movie happen, so I wrote that with him. And then now we're to the point where it's like Jason has a film he wants to direct, our cinematographer Garrett Schwent's going to direct a movie, and we're going to kind of just alternate and do things. And I've got my own projects, you know, Jason has his stuff. That's just how we go about. So I can't really give you a. That's the best answer. It's like
no, I think it's a good answer too with what you just gave. I don't expect that to be like it's like this because it varies. I think when it comes to the creative process. Yeah.
But Derek did call me like 2 days ago and say, "Hey, Jason, let me give you 3 scenarios, and these are if the movie was this much money, it'd be this, or we could do one for this much." And I was like, "All right, well, let's." Or he'll give me a screen and say, "What do you think?" I was like, "I don't know, $3 to $5 million because it's attainable. Like it's something I think we can go after and get made and supposed. And maybe we should be trying to do a $50 million movie or something next. But it's a lot harder to raise that kind of money.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
I don't want to be 90 when we make it. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to be having a cane, you know.
So
we love to be on set and shooting, so I look at that like, man, let's try to get something, and I think it could be a good movie, and let's try to get it going.
for you both, what's the one process about filmmaking that you dread the most? Whether you absolutely hate it or have a love-hate relationship with that, or maybe you hated it before starting to like it, or you liked something before and then now starting to hate it. Is there anything like that that comes to mind about what part of the process that you kind of have that sort of like a detachment or a reattachment to it, if that makes any sense?
I used to hate post.
Okay.
I couldn't stand it because I didn't. I started off years ago doing my own editing, and I didn't have to wait for anybody because I was impatient, and I didn't have to go to a post house and do all that. And then the 2 films that I did before Whitetail, I had to wait on somebody else, and
that was audio.
No, that was I didn't edit.
Okay.
I had to wait on another guy, and I'm kind of like, well, it's Sunday, and he's supposed to be off, and I'm like, well, I want to be editing. I don't need to do. I have nothing to do today. I don't have. Like, can I edit? I hated it. I hated that. You get the film done, and you're just waiting to see how it feels, and you gotta wait. Just wait. Started working with Jason and do my own cuts with Amanda, who's the other editor on the first 2. And when I say my own cuts, basically it's just whatever the hell I've shot because I'm too stingy and I love all of it. I don't want to let it go. So I put it all together in a timeline, and then Jason goes and makes it really good and cleans it up. And that was the first 2, and Boone, he edited. So it's a little bit better now, but I still don't like the process of post. It's the I don't know how to explain it. Development and pre-production was always not development, but pre-production is my favorite because I love storyboarding. I love getting together with the guys and the girls and just collaborating and figuring out color schemes and this and that and all the fun stuff, and then post was always my least favorite because you've got all the footage and it's there and it's just like I want a button. I don't want to take the time. I want to and it's done. Let's go. Let's watch our movie. But
I know that feeling.
Yeah. That's with anything, right? It's, you're like you've got everything there, and you want to get it over with. And I know some people that love post, and that's where they'll spend forever on it because they can. And I'm just not that way. I want to get it done.
You just remind me. I think you would have hated working on Mad Max Fury Road because I read something online where they shot like I don't know how many miles worth of footage for the movie, and the editor had said that it took 3.5 months just to look at all the footage to condense it down to 2.5 hours. And I'm thinking, holy Christ, that's a daunting task. And just to spend whatever it was months, but I think it was 3.5 months just to look at footage to see what was shot and whatever. I can't imagine that responsibility. But then again, they had the ability to take the time with the production. They shot that movie like well over 10 years ago, but shooting it and then being in post, I think they had like an additional 2 years. I mean, it must be, to me, that's like Stanley Kubrick type of time where you can take the time to, to put together the film that you want. And it turned out to be a very, very, at least for me, a very, very good film. That was the last film. I think that was the first and only film that I remember when I saw in theaters that literally when the movie ended, I had to like catch my breath. Like that was the only time I ever experienced that. And I was like, this is fucking unbelievable. And the fact that it was an action film and it was nominated for Best Picture, I was like, this should always be nominated. That's how it always should have been. It didn't win, whatever, but it's one of those films that it really, I think like it brought back why, you know, action films are should be considered at, you know, in the same recognition as like The Godfather, because that movie was done so good with the amount of work that was involved. But yeah, I didn't mean to take away from your time about that, but it
Oh
just
wait,
crossed my mind how you talked
I
about
got one more thing to say, Jason. One more thing. That now that I'm getting a little bit older, I should say, a little more crotchety, it's it's a little different. It's like I love pre-pro because we're talking about doing it, and I'm starting to like post a little bit better because I know the damn thing's done and we didn't have, you know, I have shit. We got footage from making a movie.
Yeah.
Production's becoming my least favorite now because I'm like, oh man, I gotta wake up early. We gotta get out there. We gotta do it. Of course, I'm kind of joking. You wouldn't do this if you didn't love it, you know.
Right.
You know, especially in the independent film world. I mean, it just doesn't, you know, you don't do it unless you have the love for it. But it is kind of one of those things where it is with COVID and with everything else and the budgets. You know, for me, this is new. I've doing the big. When I say bigger, it's big for us. That's a big budget. You know, $2 million.
Right.
It's not anything to skimp at on our level. And I'm new to it, so for me, it is a little bit of like, oh my god, like it's a little bit of a. That's a lot of money. You know, we're putting into a movie. We got to be very careful, and there's a certain amount of freedom with my conscience. When we were in post, it's like, well, this is what we have, and we're real proud of it, you know. And then when we're doing pre-pro, you're thinking it's going to be great, and then you know. So so it's kind of, you asked me, you said right, and your question, it was also like, has anything changed? And I would say it used to be being on set in the grit, in the mud. That was my absolute favorite thing in the world. And it's kind of the least favorite stage now, I gotta be honest with you.
So. Interesting.
Why is post always like shit on? Like, that's my question from the production side.
So I can tell that's your favorite then, right?
Well, yeah, it's just never thought about. There's like my goal and why I really wanted to start producing and working more on the production side was to bridge the gap of the lack of knowledge between both sides, both parties, production and post, because it's like they don't talk to each other at all.
I picked up on that. So when you guys are editing the films, are you guys, you know, in communication with one another as far as like, hey, this is how it's looking so far. Let me know what you think. Or because Jason, to me, at least when you first were commenting about that, I kind of got the impression initially that it was almost as if you were kind of left out in the dark. And then once it's done, or at least a part of it is done, they'll present it to you. So I'm not sure how, not Jason, I meant to say Derek. I'm not sure how that's all sorted out when it comes to that aspect of the post-production.
It's changed when I can tell you when I got involved, like we were looking at stuff daily as we're shooting, right? We're getting to see stuff. We're actually editing next day, starting to put scenes together. So literally when we leave set, we're pretty much got to film like in a timeline rough. And then we've got another 30 days, 60 days to really polish this thing out. So that's why I think we've been able to crank through 3 movies in less than 2 years. So we're really looking at it. I mean, we're working long days. It doesn't feel like it, but that's how we operated now.
Well, also too, since Jason's got involved, like he knows how to do all this stuff. So I can edit pretty much right when we get all, you know, done with the shoot. We may take off a couple. We always say, at least for me, the last 2, I'm like, I'm taking off 2 weeks now. Yeah. It's like the next day we're like too excited. Mm-hmm. So I can do my thing in this office right here. I can do it here, and then he can be doing his stuff at his house. And then when we need to, I run over there and he'll show me what he's been working on alone, and we can kind of take it from there. And then we take it to a post house for like audio, and the process is it goes hand in hand, you know, with it. And it's really good too, because there's been plenty of times, and I think more so in Boone than Redstone, that we caught something because Jason already had scenes he's editing in his suite, you know. He's already got a couple of scenes edited, and he shows us and says, I think it'd be cool if we maybe did this instead. Oh man, that's a good point. I didn't think about that, you know. Or man, it's, you know, you don't need to shoot as many close-ups as you were going to do because it's getting a little redundant because there's so many in this scene. Oh shit, you're right, and that comes right after. Okay, good. So it's pretty nice, you know. Now it's and it is very much now hand in hand, if I should say. The other films, my earlier films, I was thinking about, was like I would go up there have to sit with a guy at his computer, and and that's kind of what still some people have that, and they still do, but some people have more of an old school mentality where they're like, oh, you go to a studio and you sit there, and the guy, you sit on the couch, and they still do that, right? Like old nice places. But I don't prefer to work like that. I'd rather work in my boxers, and cup of coffee as much as I want. It doesn't, and then in my own house. And actually, half time I got an 8-year-old, so he's running around the house. So it's just nicer to be able to do all that at once. But it's changed.
Well, maybe for Jason, I mean, I'm gonna say, yeah, Jason, are you? Do you have any kind of like love-hate relationship when it comes to the filmmaking process that may have changed or have stayed consistent when it comes to what it goes to making a movie?
I think, I mean, definitely in the next one, I'm gonna have a lot more. I'm gonna be more careful crewing and with people like who we bring on. Do a little bit more due diligence, their backgrounds, and I don't know. I feel like for me that's it. I just want to slow it down a little bit too. Been moving pretty fast, so I don't know. I've figured I can navigate. I'm figuring out how to navigate the waters pretty well now, and I feel like the last 3 films has really been a big education for me, and that's what I was getting to the point of, like, wanting to do producing. I wanted to bridge the gap between production and post, and really make that a real efficient process, and that's really why I started jumped into it. I mean, I still have a full-time job. I still work a job, and I'm lucky and fortunate that job I work for a company, Synesys. This is what we do. We build production, post-production workflows, and so able to utilize that knowledge and then bring it to our own movie sets. So
I think you guys are in a really unique position where you guys have you're starting off with this production company with Muscular Puppy, and then it's kind of, I wouldn't say rare, but it's nice to see that with each production you've working on it, the production's gotten bigger. You have more resources, more funds, and so on, and then be able to work in an aspect of the industry where most indie filmmakers will probably never get to see, considering how difficult it is to get into that side of the industry as far as like working with named actors and working on productions that have more clout. I'm not sure how you guys feel about where you guys have started up and how you guys, or where you are with it now, where if you look back on it to see where you guys have started, do you start to understand that with what you guys are doing, I understand, I know you guys will know it's a rare position to be in, but to be in that position, to have the amount of work lined up, and then having the work that you've done so far in that caliber, as far as the that level of filmmaking, is there something about how you are looking at it now for yourself where you may realize that I've always wanted to be in this position, or now that I'm in this position, I'm not sure how you feel, but there's a question I'm trying to ask, but I don't know how to really formulate the question properly, but I think I hope you guys understand where I'm trying to lead with that here, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. No, I mean, I think like I said, it's a mixture of there's more responsibility, but that's great, right? You want that. You don't want to be stuck doing the same type of thing the whole time, or maybe you do. Maybe you're that kind of person that I don't. I want to change it up, and I want to do bigger and better things. Right. Better is the key word, not necessarily bigger. Like I said, we're gonna go. We're okay with it. The budget is for the film. That's kind of what we've talked about as a company, as a group of us. Have been like, we've had a couple of people that we've collaborated with, like on the last film, that are a little bit more of a different mentality, and they're like, they've some people that I consider friends talking to me saying, you can't go back and make a $600,000 film. Well, why not? Because you just made a $2 million movie. You guys need to always go up. Otherwise, it's no good. And I'm like, yeah, but see, we're getting to make a movie. Like, argue that. Like, I don't care if it's 600 grand or if it's freaking 2 million. We're getting to make a film. We're getting to work and continue that. That's a really difficult thing to do. And as long as we're continuing to make movies, I just feel like we're lucky. I do feel, yes, it's a little bit more stressful. And then I feel like it's a lot of hard work. I mean, we've worked our asses off, you know, the past almost 3 years now.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm at, is just, I feel very, very fortunate that we're here, that we're continuing to work, and that we're trying to expand and work with different people. You know, we're also bringing in people that aren't just the four of us, which is Alex Blackmon, Garrett Schwint, Jason, myself. We're you know, we do the Muscular Puppy films, and we have Austin Williams, who has his own company, and he works with us. We're trying to expand and work with other people, you know, and just keep it up. And that's pretty much it. So,
okay,
for me, that's it. I don't know about Jason.
I'm just studying right now, so I have to direct a film, and we're working on it right now. There's a script that's being put together, and it's a great story. And I don't know, man, I just like meeting people. I like solving problems, and man, making movies is like a giant giant problem. Yeah, it's a giant puzzle, and you got to have a lot of faith, and you get out there and do it. And you got to have the right team, and that circles all the way back to like, why do you want to shit on somebody else's work, and why not just together and just kind of push each other up, because we all know how hard it is. So
you know, when you're talking about directing, you Jason, for directing a movie, have you, I don't recall if I heard you mention before if you ever directed anything before. So is this going to be like a full-on just first time as far as that respective field, or have you done something before with getting some experience in as far as directing is concerned?
I mean, I've done animated stuff.
Okay.
I'm actually working on an animated feature right now. That I own the IP on, that I'm directing, that script that I co-wrote. We did episodics of this animation back in mid 2000s, so I directed those. From live action, no. I've been around production though. Like I got to watch Robert Rodriguez and work with Robert on a lot of stuff when Troublemaker was running. So, but really, just I think being around Derek most in the last few years is kind of, I don't know. I just, there's certain stories I want to tell that I feel like I can relate to, that I think I would be able to do a good job telling those stories. So,
stories as far as like along the lines with what Derek has directed, or something completely different from what you guys are used to under Muscular Puppies at this point?
Just under Muscular Puppy, and having the same kind of core team working on it, but definitely different stories.
Okay.
Say 57 is pretty different, right, Derek?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're trying to switch it up, you know, as much as we can, and we don't want to really do, you know, always the same movies. Like, you know, the one that he's referring to is based on it's a true story that happened to a gentleman who was, if I could say that, Jason, I'm sure. He was attacked and spent 8 hours in an bulletproof SUV being attacked by the cartel. So it's going to be a survival.
Oh yeah, I think I remember that story. Yeah,
and Jason is working on. We have a really great screenwriter right now who's writing that with Jason, and so we're going to be trying to shoot that one hopefully next year. You know, and then we've got gritty, kind of more akin to something like I call it like the Safdie brothers type movie that we're doing. You know, really gritty urban film, and then we have, you know, a period piece boxing movie, and that we're working on with another company from the UK, and trying to get that going. And we've got, you know, we're trying to just switch it up and do as much as we can. But it all is, like I said, it's all about, I think, it's every script, right? So, you know, and it's like Jason he wasn't just like, I want to direct. It was like, he's been real picky with it. And at first it was like, let's co-direct 57. And then it was like, there's no need to do that. Like I said, I don't believe in co-directing. I just kind of think it's like there should be one director personally, and Jason knows exactly what he wants to do, and you know, it's right up his alley. And same thing with Garrett, and you know, we've all been around it. And you know what, you're storytellers, whether you're editing or you're writing or you're producing, you're telling a story. You know? Right. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. You know? And so we have a romantic comedy coming out.
Really?
No.
It's called Two Beards. It's about two guys. They go hunting and no, I'm just kidding. Oh, never mind. That's a different movie. It's Deliverance. Never mind. So got a lot of, that's one of my top 3 films of all time.
Deliverance. That's actually really. I haven't seen that movie since I was like, what, 20?
Yeah.
but it's a good film. I remember when I saw it as a kid, I was like, "Holy fuck, what am I watching?"
Yeah, like I'm never going to the woods. Going to Arkansas.
Yeah. I want to say to you both, I am extremely happy that you had reached out to speak with me because, as I said before, in the beginning of the conversation, that these are the type of conversations I want to have because I think this is where you get to learn a lot about who it is you're talking to, and also understand the process they've gone through to make movies that whether they are well received or not. But there's a certain amount of respect that I think a lot of people tend to forget to not acknowledge when it comes to the filmmaking process. So, I believe in, giving the respect to the filmmakers that make it, even if the movie isn't very good, I still want to give that respect. I have said before with you guys that I am very much in support with what you guys are doing because I do believe with what you guys are telling here with your stories, there is some really good value behind with what you guys are doing here. And Whitetail for me was that starting point was like I can see what you guys are going for, that I want to continue in watching with what you guys are doing. Obviously I said my piece about Redstone, but despite that, what I'm hoping is going to happen is that after Redstone, that Boone would be that one picture like, holy shit, check out these guys. These guys have made something really, really special. I really do genuinely want that to happen for you, for everyone under Muscular Puppy here. So for me to converse with you guys, it really does mean a lot because these conversations are what I look for the most, because I think this is where you get the most value out of them. Because if you do the standard EPK bullshit that, in my opinion, I think is worthless, you're not going to learn anything from the conversation. So the fact that you guys have taken the time out of your day to converse with me and allow me to share my opinion, but also to learn about what you guys had gone through to make the film, really does mean a lot to me personally. So I want to give you both a lot of praise, and as Patrick would always say, give you your flowers, because you guys truly do deserve it, in my opinion. So thank you both.
Appreciate that, Rob, man. That's cool. Appreciate you guys. So.